Hello, Bible journaling friends. Today I am going to do a demo of using the verse mapping stamps in my James Method journal. I'll be using metallic watercolors, and this is the first time that I've used my stamps in here, and I love the way this turned out. I love the shimmer of the metallic watercolors. So let's go ahead and get started. The stamps are from the James Method, and I purchased them when I got my first journal. So the first thing I'm going to do is I use a foam stamp pad to put behind my pages. That way it helps the stamp to sit nice and flat so that it doesn't come out half printed when you stamp it down. So just smooth your page out. And I tried to line it up on the circles. They didn't come out exactly perfect every time, but that's okay because I went back in with my micron pen as I was doing my decorating, and I just added some extra little outlining, and it just made it look like it was a little bit rough and squiggly, and I like the way that turned out. So on the small ones, I alternated. I decided to use two different ones, and I alternated as I went around so that the feathers were in different positions as I went. So just get it inked up good, and then just start putting them down there. And this one I did get really kind of crooked when I put it down, but I thought, oh, no biggie. It's just a happy accident. I'll add some lines to it later. I'm rotating the stamp as I go around, and I did every other one alternating. And then after I finished the first three, I changed my stamp for a different one. And then I went ahead and did the same thing with that one. And you'll notice that as I'm stamping it down, I'm alternating the direction that the feathers are facing as I go around. I love these little feathers because I am a fine artist and I draw birds, and so the feathers were just a really neat decorative element for me, and I just like adding the decoration to the page. This little oval one, at first I didn't think I would use it, but then I decided I'm just going to stamp it right on top of that banner, and I think it'll be fine. I started placing some of the feathers in different locations around the page. And after I did the first few that were on the right hand side of the page, I started to do close to the binding and realized I needed a smaller stamp block. You want to use a small stamp block and put your stamp right on the edge so that the binding of the book does not affect the stamp as you put it down. After I got everything inked in with archival ink, I went ahead and got out my metallic watercolors and my water brush. And I started off just deciding what my color scheme was going to be, which was basically a purple and an aqua color. And I went ahead and did my purple on the feathers first, and then came back and started adding in some aqua. I did decide to make two different color schemes on the feathers. So the first group of feathers I did had more aqua on them, and then the second group of feathers that I did had more of kind of a steel gray blue. I went over those lightly because I didn't want the water to bleed through to the back of the page, so I just made sure to go very slowly, not to oversaturate as I went. And then as I got them closer to being completed, if I had any that looked too pale or too light, I just went back to my watercolors and I just kind of started touching up some of the places that I thought were a little bit too soft for my taste. And then after I got all of that finished up, I took my micron pen, my fine, and I went over and decided to put some of those little lines back in that got covered up by the metallic watercolors. So I do have this sped up to keep the video short. My Uniball white gel pen was used to go down the center of the quill just to make that highlighted a little bit and have it pop. And it just kind of adds a little bit extra when you're using watercolor or pen and ink. If you can just think about shadows and highlights, it just really makes things pop. I used a coordinating mild liner highlighter to write the title and the chapter, and then I started using my Uniball waterproof pens to write the main verse down. And of course the main verse usually goes in the largest circle, although you don't have to do that. There's a lot of ways to do verse mapping, so you can find what suits you. A lot of people will write the different translations over here on the right hand side. What I chose to do this time was I felt like I really wanted more context for this verse, so I went ahead and wrote several verses in addition to the main verse because I wanted the full context of the verse written out there. And then I use resources. You can use a lot of different things, Bible dictionaries, you can use commentaries, just whatever you have that you want to use to look things up. Be sure to put down the basic historical information about the book that you're reading from. This isn't specifically for the one verse, but for this book of the Bible. Just look up the history of who wrote it, when it was written, why it was written, those kind of things, and that would go under your context box. Next thing was to pick the words that I was going to focus on and define. And again, I pulled words from the surrounding scripture around the verse because there weren't enough words in that verse that I wanted to really look into, and I enjoy having the full context of the verse. Resources you can use to define your words. Some people use the Blue Letter Bible app. You can use Bible dictionaries, lots of different applications that you can download on your phone. I use different things on different days. This one, I used the Webster's 1828 dictionary app on my phone. You can type in the word, it'll pull up the dictionary, and then you can choose what parts of those you want to write down. Also, look at your verse in different translations, and you can download translations if you don't have enough on your telephone that you really like. All in all, this is what the final page looks like on the left-hand side of my journal. I have not completed the right-hand side yet. It's a little bit more intensive, but this just gives you a general idea of how to get started in verse mapping, and also maybe how to add a little bit of creativity using stamps and watercolors. Have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.